At the point when a lioness moved toward him from behind, Stephen was shocked. He was in the savannah taking photos for his narrative. He saw that the lioness was not forceful toward him and that she had all the earmarks of being needing assistance. He pursued the choice to follow her. Then, at that point, he saw it.
At the point when Stephen saw the lion somewhere far off, he was unable to trust his eyes. It seemed, by all accounts, to be weird. Its stomach was completely swollen. Stephen quickly dialed the number for the neighborhood veterinarian, who had no clue about what she had seen. This was whenever she first had at any point seen anything like this. She quickly reached the police subsequent to playing out ultrasound. At the point when the vet called the police, she was guaranteed that they would be on their way immediately. This lion needed something other than a veterinarian's help. This lion required a medical procedure since something strange was happening in its stomach. It might involve life in passing. At the point when the police showed up, they helped the vet in steadying the almost dead immense lion. The police, in any case, didn't just help the vet, they additionally came to the officer's guide. "Sir, we require your presence, it is basic." Stephen was shocked. What turned out badly with him? Stephen was posed a progression of inquiries about himself as well as the lion. As an officer, he has been saving the animal okay for a long time. He heard mistrust from the activity room when he wrapped up responding to the inquiries in general. The vet said, "I can't trust this." As an officer, Stephen has been concentrating on the lions nearby for about a year. He's responsible for getting the animals far from risk. Poachers and other loathsome characters have been identified in the asylum as of late, making things troublesome. Guarding the animals has been all along an intense exertion for Stephen and different officers. Because of a deficiency of labor and the savannah's steady peril. For all interested parties, the blend has been very troublesome. Their supervisor keeps on pressing the officers, yet they can't deal with the circumstance. Numerous untouchables have seen this also and enjoy taking benefit of it. Everything turns out to be much less secure thus. At the point when Stephen was out on his standard visit one day, he saw something enormous off somewhere far off. He accepted he was recently exhausted and seen things from the outset. In any case, as he drew nearer, his jaw expanded open. How can it be the case? Stephen was so stunned by what he saw that he made a stride back. He was reluctant to move toward the lion from the get-go in light of the fact that he was uncertain of its response. Stephen felt a sense of urgency to help the animal immediately. Something was plainly out of order. It was the greatest lion Stephen had at any point seen, and he remembered it. It was the neighborhood lion pack's dominant man. The lion, then again, didn't seem, by all accounts, to be his standard vainglorious self, as his tummy was altogether swollen. It created the impression that Stephen would be expected to help. Stephen started moving toward the lion, somewhat scared from the outset, yet his adoration for animals was more grounded. He expected to sort out what was happening. He couldn't simply let the lion go. He chose to enroll the assistance of different officers. There was no doubt as far as Stephen can say when he talked with his better that something required than be done immediately. They expected to safeguard the animal from whatever was causing the expanding in its belly. Stephen had no way out but to rapidly act. With additional officers on the way, Stephen started to delicately move toward the lion. He had no clue about how the lion would respond to Stephen since lions are pleased animals. Then, at that point, it went to Stephen, and briefly, Stephen's heart fell. Is it safe to say that he planned to be gone after by the lion? Different officers hollered, "Get back!" They forewarned Stephen that the lion could answer viciously in this present circumstance since he is endeavoring to shield himself. Subsequently, the officers concocted another methodology. The officers concluded they expected to settle on a telephone decision and attempt to contact the closest animal veterinarian. The officer who had called the vet responded in shock when the call finished. The officers should move out of the lion's close-to area, as per the vet, or he will go after them. Prior to undermining the lion, he requested that the officers perform a certain something. It ought to be calm so they might analyze it all the more intently. Stephen and the officers ensured the region was all right for the vet to approach. Stephen chose to steady the lion all alone. He'd found it, accordingly he'd ensure things went as flawlessly as could really be expected. The officers were fortunate in that the lion was before long quieted and didn't seem to oppose them. Since the lion gave no indications of opposition or a longing to hurt the officers, it's conceivable that it genuinely needed to be helped. The officers could now see precisely where the lion's lump was put on the body. Stephen reached the vet, who was as yet not present, to educate her regarding their revelation. The officers are interested about what they'll need to do straight away. However, when the vet hears where the lump is, their tone changes. The lump was put in an unmistakable area on the lion's body, towards the start of the stomach, demonstrating that entering the lion's body couldn't. What, then again, could be inside this lion? The lion had obviously gulped something it shouldn't have, and it would more likely than not need crisis medical procedure to make do. There was no wiggle room. The officers, then again, were confused. So, they went to the vet and asked her what they ought to do. Might it be said that she is here at the last possible second? Should the lion be brought to her? They were trusting it was the best option. Be that as it may, getting to the officer's site was a test in itself for the vet, as she had no clue about where the officers and workers were. Besides, it was busy time, so she would no doubt get caught in rush hour gridlock. In any case, she expected to arrive straight away to guarantee the lion's life. One of the officers proposed to take her. That, nonetheless, would take excessively lengthy. Nonetheless, there were still individuals at the officers' base camp who knew precisely where the officers were and how to arrive. Subsequently, the veterinarian chose to visit the Central Command. Subsequent to portraying the issue, the director consented to help her, and they wanted to cross the savannah in his off-road Jeep, which is rarely simple. The vet goes on a thrill ride. The movement requires around 3 hours altogether. The vet had considered ordinarily whether the existence of this lion merited squandering a whole day in addition to extra on. Different animals in trouble might have required her help too. The officers at the area were similarly baffled by the time allotment they needed to hang tight for the vet. Their fear became reality. The lion's sedative had worn off, and he in no way wanted to remain in his ongoing area. It had stood by adequately lengthy and was presently endeavoring to move once more. The officers were confused for what to do straight away. A few officers liked to just let it go in light of the fact that it implied they could at long last get back. For what reason would they say they were so worried about a lion to start with? It was basically animals that had ingested something that shouldn't have been there. The gathering couldn't settle on anything. Others had acknowledged the vet's words and understood that delivering the lion currently would likely bring about its demise. Luckily for the lion and the vet, this gathering made up by far most. Since the lion was all the while moving gradually, the officers had the option to utilize their jeeps to obstruct its direction once again into the savannah. They couldn't steady the animal again since they had burned through their narcotics as a whole, notwithstanding, the veterinarian has a portion with her. However, they needed to hang tight for her. They couldn't totally circle the lion, so they needed to continue to move to deter the lion's way. The animal was plainly bothered by this, and the officers should have been mindful. The officers became concerned. Is this the legitimate strategy? Regardless of whether it wasn't in brilliant shape, a lion of this size could undoubtedly kill one of them on the off chance that it got its hands on it. The officers acknowledged they needed to depend on each other. It turned into a cooperative exertion, with even the people who needed to let the lion go contributing. At the point when the veterinarian came, the lion was all the while lying in similar place where the officers held him. Nonetheless, it turned out to be all the more evident that this wouldn't be the situation for a really long time, since the lion had become incredibly unfriendly. The officers would even not like to leave their jeeps, which they had stopped there to keep the lion set up. However, the lion quickly pursued the officers who stayed in their jeeps. A considerable lot of the officers had previously had close experiences with the lion, Yet the worry for the lion had now arrived at an unsurpassed high. Since they would have rather not gotten injured, a few officers moved their jeeps a long way from the lion. The vet expected to move promptly on the grounds that she understood she possibly got an opportunity on the off chance that she could calm the lion rapidly. In any case, quieting the lion accompanied a few dangers. Given the lion's state, there was consistently the likelihood that it wouldn't awaken. The specialist, nonetheless, was certain that it would endure the treatment in the wake of noticing it effectively endeavoring to go after the officers. The main choice was to utilize the sedatives to move toward the lion. The veterinarian trusted that the lion's head will turn the other way. She then moved toward the lion gradually prior to infusing the narcotic into the animal's lower body. They needed to hold on until the lion was totally calmed prior to continuing. It dialed back during the following a few minutes, and the vet had the option to infuse the lion with 2 or 3 additional tranquilizers, which were expected for a lion of this size to completely rest out. The lion was totally out inevitably. Depletion made a few officers drop to their knees, and their pulses steadily got back to business as usual. They'd been near death a few times previously, so they were feeling quite a bit better to be alive. Presently the vet could zero in on the lion's enormous lump, which was the explanation she showed up in any case. She gets her medical procedure kit out of the colossal vehicle at the officer's central command and sets it up for work. She pursued the choice to direct an ultrasound first. She immediately reached the police in the wake of seeing the ultrasound. She had some inclinations about strange goings-on. The police were apparently currently en route to the scene to help with the technique. To begin with, Stephen needed to answer a couple of inquiries. Be that as it may, why him? By feeling the lion's body, the vet can quickly affirm her interests that the item is stuck at the lion's stomach entrance. The article held up in the lion's body was something it had gulped that the stomach-related framework couldn't separate. There was only one thing the vet could do. Nothing remains to be finished as of now yet painstakingly cut open the lion and concentrate the article. Nonetheless, medical procedure is never without risk, particularly when it is acted in the savannah. Be that as it may, there could be no other decision. The vet cuts into the lion alongside the lump with outrageous precision and care, and subsequent to going through the skin, muscle, and throat, the wellspring of the enlarging is at last revealed to everybody. However, that isn't the very thing that they had expected. The enlarging was delivered by a piece of meat that was not sufficiently processed by the lion. Something odd was found inside the tissue, which confounded the vet from the start, and this was the explanation Stephen needed to answer the police. Inside the meat, there was a gleaming. There was a little central processor stopped in the tissue, and Stephen informed the officials he had a thought what it was. He started by describing his new collaboration for certain obscure characters in the area. Stephen had recently gotten a few poachers and caught a gadget they were conveying. He ran to his pickup and gave the gadget to the specialists. One cop promptly perceived the contraption since they had recently grabbed another person with a gadget that was almost indistinguishable. This framework may be utilized to follow the microprocessor, permitting poachers to effortlessly find the lion without drawing in the consideration of the officers. This was an as of late utilized technique. Since the meat they utilized couldn't be processed by the lion, it became held up. The vet quickly fires closing up the lion in the wake of eliminating the chip. While she's doing this, she verifies whether the lion has some other issues. But since he seemed, by all accounts, to be healthy, she accepts he'll be back in shape quickly. The lion requires several minutes to awaken. From the beginning, it seems confounded and astounded. Nonetheless, sooner or later, it starts to move away a lot quicker than before the medical procedure. After the lion had gotten back to the savannah, the vet had another errand to finish. She lauded the officers for their chivalrous endeavors in safeguarding the lion and themselves. She got back to the city from that point onward, where she had more patients hanging tight for her. The vet did something final to ensure the lion was fine. She verified that Stephen would keep her refreshed on the lion's exercises and would watch out for the lion for her. The mindful poachers were captured by the police. they had the option to keep the whole association. Yet again, the animals would be protected. What a great ending. If you love this story, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks for watching.